Okay, let's move on to item 2, approval, and we've completed call to order, noting that Council or Deputy Mayor Lutz is not able to join us, and we're gonna move on to approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add to the agenda for tonight? I will note that there is, item E under new business will be a strategic planning process update. And in camera, there will be B, which is an agreement that we're gonna consider. So it's- Okay, nothing further. Can we have a motion to approve the agenda? Councilor Jameson and a seconder, Councilor Walsh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no contrary minded, motion is carried. Let's move on to approval of the minutes. So A would be the regular council meeting of March 11th. Anybody note any errors or omissions with that?
A point of order on that, Mr. Mayor. Regularly moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting be approved as amended. What was the amendment?
Oh, did I not put that in there?
Without that, we can have the minute or the, everything else about it, the agenda of the last meeting, but if there's an amendment, we don't seem to get that. So I think it should be recorded here what the amendment was.
No, yeah.
Yes, and I don't remember right off what it was. You-
Yeah, I'd have to go back. It would be in my original notes there, but I don't know right off, but I can amend.
Okay,
I can amend the amendment.
So, yes,
Yeah.
that's what we'll have to do. We'll find our notes and we'll make an amendment to the previous minutes
To reflect
to
that.
reflect the amendment.
okay, thank you.
Okay? Anything else? Okay, can we have a motion to approve those minutes with that amendment to the amendment?
So move to amend the amendment?
Thank you. Okay, we have a seconder for that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion's carried. And now to the next set of minutes in the package, which is the special council meeting of March 25th. And does anybody know any errors or omissions to that? Do we have a motion to approve? I guess we will. Yeah. Councilor Walsh, seconder, Councilor Jameson, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion's carried. And have a process, they usually just move them as presented, which we'll go back to. All right, let's move on to item 4, which is review of the action items. And, we'll ask our CAO if there's anything there she wants to highlight.
Yes, so I realized that I did add a column which didn't print in the PDF version to add some comments so that you would see for some of the items that continue to say in progress, that there is some work being done or we're waiting on something. So we'll get that updated, to reflect that. For example, under other for the NSFM Code of Conduct training, I put it as other because it's been resolved, before we actioned it. I believe everyone's been able to, or those that have now tried to register have been able to.
Oh, good, I'll do it now.
Okay.
I want to make sure everyone else is successful.
Yeah. I wanted to note that under the independent investigator into the code of conduct, so the Association of Municipal Administrators has shared their list of pre-qualified independent investigators. So the next step will be for me to engage with one or more for Berwick. And under number of fines written by RCMP and how does it get directed to town of Berwick revenue. So we did get some initial confirmation on that was provided to the police advisory board, but we're still gathering additional information. So basically what we know of as to date is that if a summary offense ticket is written and checked municipal, unless it's for one of our bylaws, it goes to the County of Kings. So we're trying to determine if they receive money that then they send to us, because there's also a delay in when those tickets are written. Krista, when she was in a previous role in another organization, would see those come in, and a lot of the times they're 1 to 2 years behind due to the court process. So we're still gathering information on the fines. And then I also just included in here that delayed until May for the order on 109 Marsters due to preparing some significant grant applications that were due last week. So hoping to get that in May, and also have an update on 144 Cottage. 144 Cottage, or what's? Or 141?
Oh, 144.
144.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have an update on that one as well. And Counselor Sereno had reached out to BCFN, and we're hoping to schedule a time for them to come and present. So if there's any questions about whether they have any revenue and whether there should be money coming back to the towns. Today at the meeting, they actually were asking a few questions to work on a work plan for this coming fiscal year. And one of the questions was, do you still want to continue and value in the organization? So it would be really good to hear from them, their value proposition, and learn about how the difference between some of the rural and towns are using BCFN. And those are the updates. So in the future, you'll see those written in comments so that it maybe limits some of mine, and you might have additional questions from my update.
Okay, any questions of the action items? Okay, well, let's move on to the first item under new business, which is the second reading of 106 Orchard Street. So at first,
There's no report on that because we didn't have the public hearing.
yeah. So we've had the first reading. Ben, can you put up your just the process there, where we are in the stages?
Sure, just a second.
Wouldn't mind.
Just give me a second. Let me bring this back. Can everyone see the approval process chart?
Okay, so you can see we have, I just was going to take people through the schedule. We had the application February 4th, March 4th, PAC has made the recommendation. We went to first reading March 11th. We had the public hearing a few short minutes ago, when we were now
I think
on.
that's not correct. Yeah, that's not correct. Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
Oh. Which part is this in?
Just correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we're now at the point of approval, which is the second hearing. So we would need a motion for that to approve or not approve. And then it would go on to being action there. And we 14-day wait period.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and seconder. Any further discussion or questions on this? Okay, let's call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion's carried. Okay, well, thank you very much. That is that one, and then you're welcome to join us for the rest of the evening.
I would love to. I just got some pre-cooked dinner at home waiting for me, and just then I don't think dinner can wait. So,
I use that one before, you know.
Okay.
all right,
Thank you very much.
everyone have a good night, eh? Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move on to B, which is the
I really thought he was gonna stay. Yeah,
yeah.
Really?
not a chance.
Okay, let's move on to item B, which is the King's Transit budget approval, and we talked about that at the last meeting, is having that as they were looking for the approval. I will mention that we are hoping to have both the rep from Kings Mutual and from Valley Waste join us at a meeting. What did I say? Kings
Mutual.
Oh, Kings Transit, sorry, and Valley Waste in the next couple of meetings to explain kind of what's going on there and also to deal with budget items. So, but tonight, if there's any questions on it, we'll try to answer as we can. And if not, we can, if they're urgent, we'll get the information. And if not, then we can ask when they arrive. So, you will see the Kings Transit information there. So, any comments, questions on that?
Just a couple questions, it doesn't reflect any increase in fares, is that just increase in ridership in the budget, is that what is being reflected?
Yes, that would be their projection in increase based on trends.
So even with, inflation, they're not, putting
Making any
anything to,
changes.
no changes whatsoever. And could you clarify for me the difference in management fees, between Summer Zero in expenses, and of course Annapolis is quite significant.
Mhm.
I'd just like to have an understanding of why the difference, how they're treated.
So I might have to ask that question and get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Well, actually, sorry, no, I don't have to. I just looked further down the line. So under the first one says Annapolis at the top. So this is the budget that only goes to Annapolis County. So it would only show the management fees for Annapolis County. The next one says Digby, and only the Digby fees show. So it's what the core operations charges back to Annapolis and Digby for providing the service. So if you go to page 13, the top one there is the overall, and you'll see that the core recovery, which is minus 461, should equal the Annapolis and Digby expenditures.
So it's just a matter of how they've broken it out into the overall budget.
Yes, so that was my mistake in how I numbered the pages. So the first, if you read it in the following order, it would make more sense. The King's Transit Statement of Revenues and Expenditures operating budget, and then read the core budget, which would be the core partners of King's, and then Annapolis and then Digby, they all fold up into that first one,
The first one, okay.
what should be the first one.
Correct,
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah.
That clarifies it for me.
The difference in the fees between Annapolis County, which is 303,000, and
Mhm.
Digby, which is 157, is related to the distance and the routes and stops and those kinds of things, and the providing the services, isn't it?
it's not quite that, right now, it's not quite what you
Right.
described.
Okay,
There could be, I think some of it is, I wouldn't want to try to guess, I would like to provide you
Okay.
with an answer. It has to do with some assumptions that they do make on, what fees and how much time is spent on the different buses, so I know that Annapolis and Digby each pay for their own buses. So then if Digby had, say, one and Annapolis had three, there would be more overhead costs associated with Annapolis's operations than with Digby, if that
That
makes
explains
sense.
it to me, actually. I was just-
But I will still just make sure that that is correct and provide an update to council.
Yeah, it was hard to flow that down when you explained that the budget is,
Yes, I just put them in the wrong order.
you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
any other questions then? King's Transit? And as was noted in this, because we're a partner and and a small partner, we can vote no on this, but we're still required to pay at this point. I mean, the way we would not is by getting out of the partnership, and that would take quite a bit of process to do that, so that's,
And
so
probably pay more with what liabilities are still.
still associated with, yeah, the other things. So, but again, as I mentioned earlier, if we have more questions or want more detail on any of this around the service and future service and what they have in place, that'd be a good opportunity when we have the representatives here.
So effectively, our cost is just under $100,000.
Just over.
So it's just over, operating is 98, and then you add the 4,000, yeah, for capital. And this was already approved, and that amount was included in what was approved for our operating budget.
Great. Okay, so can we have a motion to approve this? I'll put that motion. Councilor Sereno, do we have a second, Councilor Goddard? All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any contrary on it? Our motion is carried. And let's move on to the Valley Waste budget. Again, there's a lots going on there that we would like them to come and explain, especially around this extended producer changes that will take place in December for next year, and there's you know, a number of different contracts have been re-signed and things all related to that, and it will change. It'll be changing the budget considerably in the future. But I guess who's paying for that stuff, so I think it'd be important for us all to hear about that. So, any questions?
Uh, 13.7% proposed increase in the budget represents how many dollars increase?
Actually. It's like 40.
So for 10,000,
This is Valley Waste, right?
yeah. So that's
You're talking about
our portion, that's about 40,
Yeah,
5,000.
45, 46.
so it went from 221,000 to 256.
actually.
So 45,000.
Budget to budget.
450, yeah, budget to budget.
And the other thing that I was asking for clarification before on is the reserve account
Mhm.
Related to Valley Waste, and is that adequate? Do we have to account for more reserves within the town? Or are they covered for a number of years?
So we don't have the answer to that yet.
We don't have the answer.
Yeah.
But that will come forward at some point.
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that one? All right, let's call for the motion, or, sorry, we got to look for someone to move. Councilor Jameson, seconder, Councilor Walsh. Any further questions on that one, discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And contrary, so our motion is carried. Okay, let's move on to item D. And you have your report there, so for support for the MIP application. And we'll let our CAO kind of take us through that one.
So I had mentioned earlier that in partnership with the towns of Wolfville and Berwick and Kentville, we were putting out an RFP to find services to look at our human resource system and policies, procedures, and look at adequacy, and also potentially look at service delivery options for supporting the three organizations where we don't have designated or dedicated HR specialists. So in this report, we're looking at execution of the needs assessment of our current HR delivery system and identifying gaps and weaknesses in existing resources, services, structures, policy, and processes. Identify areas for improvement and recommended investment to address gaps and strengthen resources, services, structures, policy, and processes, and to recommend solutions to address gaps, weaknesses that optimize resource requirements without negatively impacting the individual town's autonomy. So attached to this RFD is the request for proposals that was advertised and closes tomorrow. We have received 4 already. The CAO of Wolfville has prepared a grant application to the Municipal Innovation Program, which is specifically directed to municipalities who work together. So if you partner with another municipality, you are eligible for these grants. If you're applying by yourself, you're not eligible. So it's looking at ways for modernizing working relationships with municipalities. So originally, we had included in our budget about 6,000, did I say in here? About $6,000, 7,500 is what we thought it would be, based on receiving this grant and 15% of the 25% of the project that the municipalities would have to fund. We're looking at $4,300 to participate in this opportunity. So at this time, we're just looking for a motion to support the application to be submitted to the Municipal Innovation Program. Beyond the assessment and options for service delivery, there's no commitment to buy into the service delivery options that are provided. That would come back to council for further consideration. At this time, we're looking at preparing the assessment and the recommendations with this funding.
Cool. So for clarification, we don't need to include the dollar figure that you mentioned there, at all, just the support for the application. Okay. Any further questions then, Councilor?
Basically, the intent is to share resources.
That's one of the things they'll look at. I think the most important thing we'll get out of this is an audit of our human resources and procedures and policies that we have available and where some of our weaknesses might be, and recommendations for how we can strengthen them and how we may work with Wolfville and Kentville to strengthen them. So the final report will come with some recommendations, and then that will be when council can provide support for one or many or none of the options that come forward.
Councilor?
I just have one question. So this is we're just looking at our HR, that's it?
That's what this one's related to.
Okay, cause like when I was in the military, I remember we had efficiency officers that used to come in and they look at the place as a whole
Mhm.
and see where all the weaknesses, all the gaps, everything is. So like, are we gonna do this every time we go to look at it, or can we just hire an efficiency group? We'll come in, look at the entire organization as a whole and see where all of our weaknesses, all of our gaps, all of our problems are, and then give us a report versus just HR.
It's a good point. I'm not aware of that service for municipalities specific to the entire organization. I am aware where they've looked at certain positions and do that, but I don't know what the cost would be. We were approached by Wolfville and Kentville to join them on this.
Mhm.
So it's a great point. I have not looked at it.
Okay. Can we look at that?
We can. So it is something that we try to do at the staff level as well, but, and when you have staff turnover, there's always new sets of eyes coming in, but it's definitely something that, and maybe as part of the strategic planning
Yeah,
process, we can discuss where that fits priority wise
Okay.
and look into that for sure.
Councillor James.
I think I only have one question, because Chris asked the other one, but it was related to the outcome of this, and would the outcome could the outcome eventually lead to an intermunicipal service agreement happening for joint staff resources or for performance reviews, whatever it may be, so that we're not all doing the same thing over and over and over and trying to come up with the same answer to a different scenario.
That's a very succinct way of saying exactly what this is looking to accomplish.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Jennifer, I have one. You mentioned you had 4 responses already to, and how's the budget looking in that? Is it in line with what you're,
Well, it doesn't close till tomorrow, so
So
we
you haven't
would
had
not have
taken any-
opened them yet.
okay.
until
Nobody
it closed.
peeks?
Well, they weren't sent to me, but I would not
Okay.
peek until the closing date.
Okay, no, I was just curious how.
Yeah.
the budget is. Okay, any further discussions on? Okay, so would someone like to make a motion that we support the application? Councillor Jameson, seconder, Councillor Blackenham. Any further discussion on it?
We are gonna look into the efficiency thing though. Yes, no,
So I think we'll bring it up in the, kind of in our strategic planning as a future action that we might do, I think is the response, and probably a good place to look at it and put it on our, as part of that process, we put it on our priority lists, and then we would go from there.
sorry, two,
Yeah.
okay.
So any further discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion is carried. Okay, so let's move on to strategic planning process. So I've been talking a little bit about this probably since kind of October, November, that it's an exercise that we need to do at the council and at the council table. So so Jennifer and I sat down and kind of about a process that we would like to put in place. I want to share that with you tonight. We'll get just some response and see if we're in the right direction as we roll this out. So we are thinking along the lines of beginning this with a kind of a community workshop where we invite residents and citizens to come. We would be looking at it would be a facilitated process where we would hire somebody to take us through likely an evening with the intention that we would establish the kinds of things that people are interested in us moving forward, the kinds of things that we would bring up that we would like to see moving and forward on. And you can imagine what some of them will be, because there's some of the things that we've been discussing and hearing about anyway. It'll be things like policing and economic development and climate change. Those kinds of things are the things that likely will come out of that. With the idea that from that evening, we would create probably 4 to 6, depending on how it shapes up, of priority areas, of which we would then, the next thing we would do would be to appoint and assign counselors and staff to each one of those priority areas, and likely people from the community or other experts in those areas. And we would spend the next couple of months in that task group fleshing it out and coming up with either the goals or whatever you may want to call them, strategic issues, or how we would move forward around those priority areas. Then the next step in the process would be that, and we would put some parameters around that as council, some time frame for doing that, whether or not there's some we would want to consider any budget restrictions on it, or we'd have to put some of that work together on it. And then it would come back, those committees would report back to council. From there, the council would select the items to move on and the time frame to move on them. We may have year one goals, year two goals, year three goals, and how we may need to align or reestablish staff assignments to get them done. The time frame, and I know we were talking at one time about getting at this in the spring. After our conversation, we realized we've got the MPS review, we've got a number of other projects in the works and grant applications in that perhaps it's better off to begin it in September. So we'll flush out a little bit more. We're in August with our community meeting, find someone that can facilitate this, look at it in September. And the working groups would begin shortly after that. And we would have something back to council November, December-ish to be making sure it's included in the budget and directing our budget as we move forward. So that's kind of the process. I thought it was important that I share that with you because we've been talking about it. So now we've got to move it from that, what does it look like piece? So that's kind of what it looks like, and we'll fine tune it a little bit more in the next bit, but comments, I guess I'm looking for what do you think, any thoughts on that? The other piece I forgot to mention as part of the, as well as the community workshop, we would do a community survey, as we've done in other ways as well, that we would ask people. So if they can't make the workshop, they have another way to provide input to us, so. Thoughts? Councilor Davis.
You ticked off the survey, which was my question,
Yeah,
which is good.
it was number 2 on my bullet, and I turned it into number 9 on my list, so.
Usually something like this does take facilitators, and you mentioned that. Do we have a budget in mind for how much that facilitators would be in?
We put $5,000 is in our budget now for that. So, and that would primarily be for that initial community meeting, and we're thinking that from there on, the facilitator wouldn't be involved in the working groups at all. That would be on us and our staff to help support that. So it would be, so we're hoping that 5,000 will do it. Some of our discussion was, we probably at that price for that bit of work, we don't need to tender it. So if we can find somebody that has that expertise, we'll work with them and hopefully that price will work. To be determined though, as you know, and but we are going to start to ask around just to someone perhaps in the valley that does that as opposed to putting it up.
And what sort of, we've mentioned starting this fall, but if we're looking at going forward and doing a strategy on this, are we talking a 5-year horizon, a 10-year horizon, a 100-year horizon? I guess I just have to have some context on
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the parameters that we'll need to flush out a little bit as we work. So council will say, to the working groups, so consider this over a 3-year period or a 5-year period, and come up with, don't feel that you're creating items that all have to be done in that one single year. If you're coming up with particular things that we should do to address the issue, some of them may be short term, but some of them may be long term. But don't, it's not as if it's a process that we're gonna go through every year and redo them all again. So maybe it's the length of the term, maybe it's a little longer, so. Yeah,
Okay.
there's certainly a point that we need to make sure when the working groups start their work, they have that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Any other?
I just want further clarification based on Councillor Jameson's question. So when we're doing this exercise, sort of the visioning exercise, are we asking the community for a vision sort of 20 years down the road there, where we want to be, or 10 years or 5 years? Like, is that, have we got an idea of kind of what that parameter would be? Because clearly,
Yeah.
that totally changes perhaps what people will
Yeah.
put forward, but it also is important to sort of have that sense of sort of that long range.
Short and long range. short
Yeah,
and long range.
exactly. I think that's open. We should talk about that, especially with the facilitator, is to how they would best present this. I think the action items are the pieces that would come next that could be short term or longer term, or, you know, there may be some great suggestions there that'll take 20 years to do. But I think when we do that with a facilitator, we need to, because it's an important question to, you know, when people are thinking about this or providing feedback, it's, you know, we would be asking them to think about, you know, what does your community look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time? So your question is very important, so. But I, you know, we haven't got, we didn't kind of discuss that yet, so it's, yeah.
Just a little suggestion here, instead of putting it in terms of like 5 years, 10 years or 30 years, you just go short, mid and long. And we don't put a year on it, so that way people think, well, I don't ever get done, it'll take 100 years to get that done. We don't care. We don't care about how long it takes. If you want it done, if that's a vision for your town, put it in there. Right?
I was just gonna say, I think that I would suggest that we wanna look long-term in terms of what you're feeling in terms of how the community could look. But the strategic plan is only going to be 3 to 4 years,
Oh, okay.
because that's all you can control as council.
Okay.
So I think working with the consultant or the facilitator on how to get that feedback by thinking long-term in terms of the decisions you want to make today and the impact they'll have, and what you might want to provide as direction that can be carried on to the next term. But the actual carrying out of the plan will be the council term, maybe 1 year into the next council term as they prepare their strategic plan. But there does need to be, I think, agreed some visioning to it in terms of what you see in the future. It's a great
What we do in 1 year may not look like a lot, but 50 years down the road, it could be enormous.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I think if we're fine with this direction at this point, we'll continue to work on it and bring it back and continue to kind of, you know, pick away at the details and how it shapes up, but I didn't want to start doing any more of that until, you know, until we had the conversation around this table, so. Make sure that we're kind of going in that, in the sense of a process that you guys think is good. Other councils have been doing this and have done it. Some of them started like almost the day after they're elected and sat around their table or hired somebody and we're done in the day. And so there's different approaches to this, and this is the one we think that will give us the most at the end of the day. But it's gonna take more work. It's gonna make, you know, we're gonna be more involved as council to be more involved in these things as we task these. Staff are gonna have to be prepared to spend some time and effort into this, and may change what they do when we're finished for the next 3 or 4 years, and they need to be prepared for that. So there's preparation. That's one of the reasons that we want to not jump right into this now with so many other things. So give us time to shape it up and be ready to go in fall. So that's our thinking at this point. And you know what, if you think of something tomorrow, call. It's not like, there's lots of things that need to go into this yet. And we're just kind of still working away at it. So I appreciate any thoughts or comments. And I'm sure many of you have had experience either facilitating something like this or being part of something like this. So, you know, there's lots of ways it can go and there's lots of direction we need to provide yet, so. Any last comments on that? Are we ready to move on? Alrighty, so let's move on to correspondence. And we have one from Adrian Johnson, who's been doing lots of work around civic addressing. You've read his letter there. So he's been a long time proponent of doing this, and now he wants to do some more specific work and wants the town to help support him in promoting civic addressing. And our Lions Club is the contact organization that provides those, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can,
It's the 911 signs
Mhm.
as opposed to civic. act.
Oh, is it? It's a
Yes.
911 sign. Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
The reflective one.
He's done,
So
which,
it's the 911 signage, but it is your civic address.
Yeah.
And typically it's in a civic addressing bylaw that states what is required of homes in a municipality. Berwick does not have a civic addressing bylaw or policy. It is something that we've talked about. It's just where does it fit in priorities? I do think though, we didn't get it out in this newsletter that just went out, but and probably the better place to put it would be in the utility bills, because those go to the person actually usually lives in the home, not necessarily the tax bills could go to someone in Halifax, Ontario, somewhere else. So we could, instead of doing a mail drop, because we have a couple of those coming up, we could put something in there. I did notice today on Facebook that Wolfville did just put out bring attention to these signs, I think, as a response to Adrian's letter. So again, we can do some of that and stress the importance of having these signs, where to get them, and then include them in some upcoming mail drops.
and we've had it on our electronic sign.
Yes, we
Not too
have as
long ago.
well.
Yeah, whether it's still, it may even still be there, I don't, is it still there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Counselor Stream.
Can we put in the newsletter we email out as well? Where to get it and all the information?
Yes, so we did just do one today.
Okay.
It dropped today, so
Yeah,
that,
okay.
it wasn't in there. And the next one like that will be it's quarterly.
Yeah.
But we will do, and we do have the MPS review newsletter coming out next week. And then we're doing an insert for the budget in the tax bills. But we can do something to put in the, utility bills,
Okay.
so that it's directly in the bill when you open it. I find the mail drops are good, but if you say no to flyers, you do not get one.
Yeah. No, I like
So we'll
your
try
idea,
to,
put it in the bills. I like that.
yeah, we'll try to hit as many as we can, and we can always include it again in 3 months' time when we do the next
Very,
newsletters for sure as well.
very, absolutely. Excellent.
I will mention anyone new, that's new homes in town, when they get their civic addressing assignment. If the letter that comes to them with their assignment and it does state, a little bit about the 911 signs, like the blue reflective, that's sort of his messaging on that as well. That it is, although we don't have a bylaw that says it's a requirement, it is highly recommended that, and that's right in their letter, to say, here's your civic address, it is recommended that you put one of these blue reflective, and it's available, and he does list where you can get them, so those are unfortunate just for new civic addressing assignments, but however, and I think they do, it does work, because I do see quite a few of them going out.
So our staff willing to contact Adrian, tell them we're working with them? Is that the direction we want to provide counsel, that we're supportive of this, and
Yeah.
Jennifer, you and or whoever
Yeah,
you choose?
we need to make it clear that there's no money, because he's still saying in his letter that he's looking for financial support as well.
Yeah. He didn't ask for an amount. I think if we're gonna promote it, we don't need him to do some of the promotion. I think that's the idea, is that we would, if he's looking for permission to use our logo, I think as well. He had a sample letter there, or a flyer or something, poster. He wanted to put our logo on it. Yeah.
I don't see a problem with having our logo on the civic address thing. It just, really, it just looks like all of us, all the municipalities and local are getting together to think this is a good idea, which I do think it's a good idea.
Given the number that are not included that he quotes there, it is kind of shocking.
More than 61%.
Just a question on, is there any tie in here, or should there be any tie in here with the
Ties right
EMO?
here.
Hmm?
Ties right here.
Ties right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're here, I know
I'm
that. Do you want to speak to this?
Nah, you got it.
Just wondering if EMO and Dan
Mhm.
specifically, if there should be a connection made there as well. I see it's with the Kentville Police, the RCMP.
Mhm.
But there is value in in the EMO,
Mhm.
having contact or knowing about what's going on within the county and
Mhm.
Dan works with the, local police as what, or fire department.
Yep, so I can follow up with him, and it would be really important, I just attended the community evacuation training.
Right,
So thinking about whether you have to go door to door and you're checking off, listing people, you know, it's important to be able to find where people live and. I can definitely forward this to Glenn and ask him if he's working with Adrian.
just to
If there's
contact.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe ask to put it on the next, Remo agenda.
2
What's
weeks, I
that?
think.
2 weeks, yeah, it should be 2 weeks, yeah.
With that,
Mhm.
okay. So let's move on to number 7, which is the mayor's report and any of the listings of things there. Been busy. Never any dull moments. Here's things lost on the go. If there's any questions,
What came of it with the, sorry, I didn't put my.
Councilor Walsh.
I'm just gonna see if there's any fun news coming from the bridge beautification.
So we meet tomorrow afternoon with them and we have, the kind of the list of things that we're planning to, we're gonna go over the list of things tomorrow and then present those to the rep from Dexter's Department of Transportation. Tomorrow we'll identify some dates to meet with them. But we've met with, Aaron and Katie and they had some proposals of some ideas for sign, making sure we include, the sidewalk and where we would put some lighting structures and they priced some of those. At a viewing area near the bridge and how we access the river there when the stuff, so the firemen have made a list of things they would like. They would like their pond filled in from some of the excess fill. They would like to see their parking lot, some pavement expanded there, especially where the commuters park and an area seated. So tomorrow we do a walkabout and go over those things with everybody, make sure we have a combined list and be ready for that next meeting.
Okay, so my question is, you might have sent it to me, but I don't remember seeing it. Your Green Future Summit in Pictou, what came of that?
Didn't say anything came of it. It was a very interesting day of a number of sessions with people in the industry. The premier spoke and he made his pitch for how we need to be using our resources and trying to create our own greater level of effort for securing especially green energy or other sources of energy. There was Jennifer, I'm gonna get you to help me because you were there. I'm just trying to remember. There was a session that included a lawyer talking about regulations. Nova Scotia Power was talking about what they are in the works of. There was a lot of emphasis on the offshore and the value of doing offshore wind. The costs, the locations, the return. There were a number of different companies that seemed to be in that business that spoke of it.
I would say municipal electric utilities was definitely missing from the conversation. But there was also a lot of great information and representation from Escazon.
First Nations, yeah, it's yeah.
But also from the greater council that they have to hear energy projects. And so we learned a little bit more about how to approach that group and their willingness to want to get involved in some green energy projects. So that was something that I took away from.
They're a keen investor in some of these projects, which is interesting to hear. And just on that note, I have finally heard back from our local First Nations after leaving a few messages and making a few, sending a couple emails and texts that they are now working on a date for us to have a meeting with them to talk about some potential partnerships or at least, and we did, one of the things that we do want to do is clarify our land acknowledgement and talk about being a partner with them in the future. But we didn't really want to say that until we knew that there was some relationship started there, so we're waiting to hear back now on some potential dates and so we'll meet with them first and then talk about how we may proceed. One of those things, maybe a joint, council meeting with them. Anything else?
I have the audit committee you have down as the
15th?
15th, I have it down as the 24th. I'm not sure which is correct, but.
Oh, well, good
I have
question.
it as the 24th as
I
well.
think it started out as the 15th, but I think it got bumped to the 24th, like you did.
Well, I probably didn't change what I might have had originally in here because I went by my calendar, so, okay. Thank you, Eric, we'll make that. I won't show up. I got other things to do, that's my birthday, so. Oh, yeah.
You're gonna have to eat cake there.
Well, yeah. So the 24th?
Yes.
Yes, I do have that as well, so on the week the 15th. Okay, good one, thank you. Councilor Wong.
I'm just wondering, as well, if you could also give an update on the, meeting with Eden Valley on April 2nd.
Ken, again, I'll ask Jennifer to comment on that as well. So we invited them to give them an overview. We gave them all the overview. Jennifer, they had a great presentation on all the data and where it came from and why we were in this, you know, and how the formula in the bylaw works and the percentage. So they certainly understood how we arrived at the numbers that we've arrived at with some questions and comments. And they were, I would say, they were certainly taken back by the amount of changes in their fees and understanding though that it's the capital that's going into fixing that's gonna be required, but also their operating. And the intention was really to present it that day, and then we set another meeting date for May something or other to meet again on it and just entertain their reaction a little bit further. And Jennifer, what did I miss? A whole
No,
lot, I could tell you that.
No, I think that, there was definitely shock at the increase, that they'll experience. Not just this year, but when that debt starts hitting our books. So we sent them all of the raw data themselves, so they'll be able to go through it. And then our meeting on the 10th that week, is to really for them to come back and be able to ask more questions. But we wanted them to be able to leave, digest the information, look through the data. We gave them a 5-year plan. So they appreciated that. So they'll be able to have a 5-year worst case scenario outlook on what fees might look like. Yeah, and we also talked about doing quarterly meetings where we can talk about the bylaw and compliance and have those regular meetings. So once we get through this, we'll set those regular meetings up.
I think one of the other things is we did remind them of kind of some of the things that we could have or should have been doing and how we were behind in this and we're probably underbilling. And certainly, as you all know, we haven't been any times that they were over their allocation, there was no fines or any of that. So, it doesn't soften it a whole lot, it changes the number, but the reality is it's they've gotten off rather lightly over the last number of years and we're playing some catch up, but we need to do this. And I think they appreciated the 5-year plan and understanding what needs to be done because, the wastewater and lagoon issues have gone on long enough. And we all agree to that, and we do need to get the work done there. But it doesn't come cheap. And they understand the bylaw and the formula that's used and how much of is required by them and how much is required of the residents, how much is required of Grandview Manor, the bylaw that outlines all that. And we now have the data that shows, the the BODs, but also the amount of water and the whole thing that goes in there that's not really disputable anymore. So as we move forward around those numbers, then, you know, the reality is here's the cost, so. Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
Well, but I don't think it was easy to hear, and so I do think that they'll come back with a lot of questions, which. You know, we spent a lot, or I should say we staff spent a lot of time validating those numbers, even going back 5 years with data they provided. And so we're very confident in those numbers now. And so if they do have questions, we can answer them and feel, again, confident about it. And as the mayor said, there's a lot of red numbers in the spreadsheets, which represent where compliance was not met. And we did not run what that would have cost them, if they were charged every time. So that could be where some of that balance, but it is a big hit for 1 year. So
Yeah.
we're expecting to have a follow-up meeting and answer those questions.
And hopefully it'll give them some time to figure out how they can make the changes where they need to make to be able to, pay for it. I mean, they certainly had budgeted for that, especially to the amount that it is. So, they need to go back and digest that. Any other?
Just, it's actually outside of your calendar, but, just wondering what is being done. We're having a public engagement on the MPS on the 23rd.
Mhm.
Is there going to be communications prior to that so that?
Yes, so next week, we have a mail drop going out. So that will be the one that if you don't get flyers, you won't get it, but that will go out. It'll be on the website, on social media, on the sign out front. There'll be a alert sent to however you sign up for alerts a week before the meeting and one the day of. And it will invite people to come hear what proposed considerations for the restricted zoning are, that it's limited to that, and then what the future process is.
Thank you.
Can I cover that?
Yeah, I would add two things. PAC and Crystal had a nice process at the PAC meeting, and we went through that to identify those. And then she had some good suggestions for the April 23rd date, which kind of looks a lot like our stormwater management process, where we hope to have the maps and people to be able to look at the maps and comment on the maps and be more engaged and interactive around the room, as opposed to just looking at one map on the screen and having conversation. So I think we've got a nice process. We've got lots of, we're going to promote it as best we can. So hopefully everyone in council can share it as well, however you can share it when the dates and times, everything comes out, but it is April 23rd, so. Anything else in there? Okay, well, thank you. So we need a motion to go in camera. We do have two items for that. Councillor Goddard, second by Councillor Walsh. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Okay. Good night, folks.